Bam, hit the button.
Hello.
Hello.
Where's a third hello? It is absent, but never fear. Our trio, though a duo tonight in this episode of Always Strikes Late, will be returned with Miles next week, or the week after. Yep, for now, you just have us, Jack and Matt.
Hi there. How are you all doing? Just want to give you the soothing sound of a striking late voice. Uh, this is our late night recording session, which
Hmm.
generally means both Jack and I are tired as hell.
Oh, it certainly does. This is the zone of time zone zaniness, so we'll keep that going. But
Mhm.
we'll make sure we at least give a reasonable attempt at providing a quality episode for you guys out there today, our loyal listener base. So thanks as always for tuning in, and hopefully be some good stuff in this episode. So what do we want to talk about, Matt? What's our 411 for the day?
Well, I think before we get into it, because I know we're going to be tired, if you're on YouTube, like and subscribe. Go to our Patreon if you want. It would really help us keep the lights on for this. And then we can actually do all the fun stuff.
Yeah, very, very good point there. Second in everything Matt said. Like, subscribe, promulgate, talk about it, push it on your friends, play Warhammer,
Hmm.
push it on your friends in general.
That's
They
right.
have an ear. We just need an ear and
Bully
fingers
them.
to hit the buttons. Yeah.
You bully them with our soothing voices.
Yeah, exactly.
Uh,
Tricked them into thinking we're like a jazz radio DJ ensemble or something.
that's right. I feel like we do have that quality on an Always Strikes Late episode, to be 100% honest. It's like, and now rolling in the topic of the night.
Exactly. It's soothing, right? It helps people bebop on their way home. It helps those long haul truckers make it to dawn. That diner
That's right.
breakfast waiting for them. Yep.
That's right.
And sometimes, just sometimes, it helps you do a little bit better in a tour.
That's right.
And I guess that kind of brings us to the topic today. It's Matt and I trying to navigate, our way into an event, each of
Hmm.
us at separate places in the country this upcoming weekend, where, we haven't got a tournament under our belts in just a few months now, and we're faced with the wild and wacky world of literally an explosion of rules compared to maybe the way things were, in the fall. That's kind of what we're going to talk about.
Yeah, pretty much a cascade, if you will, of never-ending supplements. I feel like we're back into the end of second with all the other books there. Remember when Techless
Hmm.
and all the others were coming out with all these beautiful models and all
Yeah,
these rules and just a ton of new ways to play.
it
Yeah.
was it was exciting, right? I mean, I remember that it was like the story was advancing, Kragnos was doing the Kragnos thing, and it was kind of like that rush of new content right before a reset or edition change with third. So that was pretty exciting, but I don't remember that time feeling as nutso as this did because it was very like
Hmm.
dribbled out, right? Like in one book, it's like, here's Kragnos, here's a giant earthquake god, he can be everywhere. That's what you
Yeah.
get. And I think there was another one, I'm Slaaneshi at heart, right? So the presence of the twins coming out, being able to take the Cessors and that was very cool and that was new.
Hmm.
But it didn't seem like it went in overdrive. Can you remember, Matt? Was there what else was there that was trotted out in those books that was like a new thing you could play with that was especially like compelling?
So I actually got them on my shelf right now, but it was Techless. Oh man, I don't want to walk away. Techless, Kragnos, and then we
Yep.
had um what's his name? The Dark Prince. Everybody loves him except me.
Be'lakor, yep, Be'lakor.
Bellicor. And then there was one more that I don't actually have.
Oh, you know what? The
Um,
first wasn't the first one the
was it
big
Marathi?
Wrath of the Ever Chosen one. That doesn't really count. That was like a whole different thing. No, yeah, the
I,
Marathi, or Marathi. That's right.
Yeah, I feel like Wrath of the Everchosen was essentially a combined supplements book for Slaves to Darkness when they realized they kind of gave them a one tone approach in that
Yep,
second edition re-release book, right?
I
So
agree with
like
that.
the idolaters were probably my favorite thing, and I still remember Miles just spanking me with idolaters. um,
Oh, that book
and me
was so
just not
fun.
know what's going on. That was when your brain could be lazy. You remember those days when you could just
Yeah.
sit back, enjoy a nice, thin 2 hours of the game, and call it a day at a tournament
Yep.
an
Those
hour
are
and
the
a half
days
earlier.
before the cerebral heady days are upon us now. That's true.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
battle
but
tactics.
so he's like, show up, sit there, and take a circle. Oh, you got one. It was
Yeah.
easier. It was easier back then. Or have a monster. Did it run? No, I remember those days.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I think that those books, like I remember, I don't think Tech gave like a lot. I think it was like the other half of maybe the Lumineth at that point. They released some stuff.
Hmm.
But then it was just reconciled in the book anyway when they re-released that not too long
Yeah.
after. I think the Marathi one, gave us new Marathi Kane, right?
Well, and then we got New Cities faction from
Yep.
that, and a couple of other things. But it really, I think in the end, it turned out to be what, 4 books, right?
Yeah, 4 books with like a thing or two in each. So like definitely new
Hmm.
content, but it's like a steady clip, like a steady canter. It was
Yep.
a gentlemanly release.
Yeah,
It
and
wasn't like tons of stuff. It was like maybe one big thing and a small thing.
yeah, and like there were a bunch where each army would get their own battalions or something, or like one extra war scroll got updated because that
Yep,
was, I
yep.
think, before we really got the better part of the AOS app that we have now. If I could be incorrect, but it wasn't so much a catch me if you can on the rules.
hmm
And so I remember those coming out. There'd be one or two things that would be surprisingly good, but the rest of it, it wasn't insane. It was just another new fun way to play the game.
Yeah, that's
Again, that
exactly
was
right.
pre-battle tactics, right? So that's where we saw this being more, oh, cool. Well, now I can use this to get to that one moving objective that seems to pop over to the other table every time because I roll a 1 or something, right? To the other
Oh
side of
yeah,
the
yeah, yeah,
table.
yeah. I sure
So
remember those particular missions.
yeah, I miss those, to be 100% honest. But now that we have battle tactics, each one of these changes brings with it like a whole new slurry of choices and changes, even just in the state of the game outside of like, essentially with the army of renown, like new ways to play, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
Well, I guess like, yeah, let's start with those things and then kind of dive into the lists and the tourney thoughts at the end because that's a fun way to do it. Because
yeah,
we've teased this long enough for all of our listeners. I
I
mean, I
believe
guess we
so.
could kind of break it down into roughly 3 curveballs outside of like the normal release of books or whatever. One, Battle School updates. We already talked about that last week, and that's not
Hmm.
new. But that's periodical, right? Like every quarter or so, and it feels good, but it's not too much change, beyond like the occasional like rules update. It's just points adjustments, and
Yeah.
that's fun. But armies of renown and regiments of renown fundamentally change the way you can play the game. So just for anyone who hasn't like really peeked at these too closely or thought about them, a little reminder: a regiment of renown is something that they give as like a big block of units and stuff with some special rules that you can take within the Grand Alliance as long as it's not the home Grand Alliance of that particular thing.
Hmm.
So example being like if you had a regiment of renown from like destruction and it was a bunch of ogres, you could take it in any destruction army that was not ogres as your ally block. Just which is kind of a neat thing, right? Opens up a lot of spicy choices. So you think, okay, that's one complication. Then there's armies of renown, which are like entirely different ways to play a specific faction, maybe more limited units. And
Hmm.
of course, there's one that came out for the Sylvaneth, where you can do the Kanathi thing with the guy in the beetle instead of the normal thing, and they play a little bit differently because they're Belthnos's hunters, and so
Yep.
their battle traits and their like allegiance abilities and all our artifacts available aren't the same. So before even considering whether it's better or worse, when you have like a whole lot of these things like floating around, it just multiplies out the number of things you might have to conceptually kind of know about, not get caught out by.
Hmm.
or be familiar with to deal with on the table. Like maybe if you knew Sylvaneth before, you won't know this new Sylvaneth, or you won't understand like the weird combination of some new regiment of renown, and that is going to be what get you.
Yep. Maybe you'll get stuck up against Trug's Trog herd and you didn't realize what they could do, right?
Yeah, you're going to
Um,
show up and you're going to have the weird muscle memory if you're lucky at having played, like Trogs before. Oh, I remember those. Boost by Kiss. Man, I
mhm.
played that book like 6 months ago and I played against that army. But it's not the same now if he's doing his other things. He has a stone on his back, playing casino magic on you, getting weird abilities,
Yep. And
all that
there's
stuff.
and it's not to say that you can't take that model. It's more that the structure of the army changes, the way it can be built. I know with the Ionis one, you're just dragons, just straight up dragons.
Hmm.
That's the thing. And that's Stormcast, the Ionis new dragon model, which I will be taking to the tournament this weekend.
Oh, you're part of the problem now, Matt. You're bringing
I,
Ionis.
but I'm not bringing the Army of Renown. So it's worth noting that those guys can be used in your normal army. They just don't benefit from these what I would call almost sub factions, right? Sub allegiances.
Yep, yep.
And so like that's pretty cool. It's always nice to see some extra, styles. We saw that. What did we get so far? We got Sylvaneth, we got Stormcast, we got
Yeah, we got the piggies, pig herd or whatever they call it, and that was the
yep,
one over the summer.
Fire Slayers, we have
Hmm.
Nurgle, which I think Nurgle was the one where I was just essentially thinking, okay, these guys are whatever, right? This isn't that bad.
Was that the
And
one as the Regiment of Renown, right? With the really cool looking plague horse rider and all that
oh
stuff.
yeah, that was a
Yeah,
regiment. Yep.
those were the ones they started with, I think. And it
Hmm.
felt okay, like modern. Like there was the kind of like goblin one, right? The guy who was like kind of like a beast rouser goblin.
Yep.
There was the ghoul with like the envoy, his regiment renown. There was the oh, I'm trying to think of the other ones that were in
Uh,
those
there's
boxes. The
there's a
Nurgle
ton
one you
of them.
mentioned, yeah, yeah. Four, I think the Firestar ones are like four maybe in that particular book, unless I'm misremembering.
Mm, I can't remember off the top of my head to be honest. Oh,
That's right.
it's
That's the whole,
Fury's Flame Bearers.
yeah, whole theme of it,
Uh,
right? That's a bunch even right there. That was like book one.
yep.
Then we got book two, and book two was what? Was book two Trug's Trog Herd, or am I skipping a generation here?
No, I think you're right.
Reign of the Brute. Okay, yeah.
Mhm.
So then you got Trug, brand new, like Troll King, and then you get that new way to play. It's a new War Scroll plus a whole new sub faction. That was an army renown. I think there might have been more in there than just that. Maybe something they were facing off against, but I'm blanking on that one if it's the case. I know that in the next one there's a long hunt. You
Mhm.
had the Sylvaneth, with Belfanos, and you could do an army renowned with them. And I'm pretty sure there was an ogre one in there. You could have an army renowned with ogres, and they introduced a whole new like war scroll for the Gorgers and a whole new faction terrain piece, and then like the Maw Pit, which is a fundamentally new way for people to play ogres who want to go down that road. So
Yep.
some multiplication right there. And then, they spinal tapped, which is so appropriate given the theme of the book being all undead. And the
Mhm.
Mad King rises. And at this point, it's just Banana Town, right after the release of Flesh Eater Courts alongside that and alongside, all of the upheaval from a Battle Scroll update. And
Yeah.
this one is everything. It has not only an army of renown, like if you want to play like bats and vampires and ghouls and stuff with like Nulimi and Courtier, it has I
Mhm.
think it's like five separate regiments of renown, one for each of the Mortarks, and it literally lets you take a Mortark plus friends plus some crazy ability for every one of these. So as long as you're not playing like vampire counts, you have access to like a ton. And if you're playing anything else, there's still a few.
Well,
Um,
I mean, even with because there is a Legion of Blood one.
Hmm.
For Soul Blight. And there is what's his name? Von Karstein's one,
Yeah, yeah.
right?
There's a Legion of Night, there's a Legion of Blood, there's a Ghoul one, with Chorin, there's an
Mm-hmm.
Archon one, which is hand. There's a Night Haunt one with Belinda, and
Mm-hmm.
there's a what's his name? Catacross one too, if you're so inclined. But I don't know. I mean, obviously there's a lot to kind of look at there, and different possibilities. But the thing that's kind of crazy with those is I feel like the abilities in these just ticked up next to the ones that might have been there in the past. Like,
Yeah. And oh, sorry, go ahead.
oh, it's a good example being like in the Legion of Blood one, right? If you take the one in Neferata, you have
Mm-hmm.
Neferata, you have, so I look at this real quick. So let's go for anyone who might be
Oh, and
holding me to it.
Nef is already my favorite. I'll always go with Legion of Blood just because
Yeah.
I'm a stickler for Nef. Um, but there was an actual interesting change in
Mhm.
that one. I can't remember because I don't have the rules up in front of me. I think you have them in the book, but
I do. I do. Was it an update to that, like an errata or something, or were you saying that there was a?
well, there's just a very strange little rule in it, and if I remember correctly, it was based around all heroes instead of just vampire lords, and that was like a minute change that will catch people off guard. And I immediately saw that and went, "Cool! I can build an all-white army, white lord army out of this, right?" And so
Mhm.
they're good for unlocking those like little pieces, but it's also like, oh well, now you're going to get a specific bonus off of this, and how many people are you going to catch with the bad feels because they didn't know the rules, or you explained it to them and their muscle memory just completely took over, right?
It's true. Well, let me pick two of this out. So I think these are illustrative examples of like powerful rules, bad feels. Oh, it does that now. Well, let's use the
Mm-hmm.
Neferata one. So you
Yeah.
take Neferata, you get for your ally pool contingent her 5 Black Knights and 2 sets of 10 Death Rattle skeletons. So far, a little bit whatever.
Yeah.
But then they got 3 abilities. One is just Deathless Retainers because of 6 up ward. That's not exciting. It's just kind of keeping the allegiance strength.
Yep. Tis the norm.
But it is a norm. But then these other two, you could totally see someone saying, "Whoa, I had no idea to expect this, and now my tournament game is done." It's called the Blood Queen's Will, which is once a game ability at the end of the battle shock phase, where Neferata, if she's alive in the battlefield, you can just say, you know what? That battle tactic that I just failed, I'm going to replace it with a different one so I
Yep.
succeed. And it
Yeah.
could
And
even
that's
be one you failed earlier in the battle, which is crazy.
that's
Like this,
insanely good.
yeah, that's like anyone would want that. That's so many possibilities and insurances. And if that wasn't enough, because this stuff is still coming in, I'm pretty sure at a points discount, which we don't need to get into the weeds with.
Mm-hmm.
You also have this ability called the Blood Queen's Blade, which if she's within 12 inches of some enemy units at the start of your hero phase, you can say, you know what? Until your next hero phase, ward rolls cannot be made for the enemy unit against wounds and mortal wounds caused by attacks made by units in this regiment now. So situationally, she can shut down ward saves on anything. And granted, she or the skeletons or the Black Knights have to be the ones doing it, but in other factions, Slaves of Darkness, you have to use a heroic action on a specifically lame demon prince to even get that if you
Mm-hmm.
want it at all, or if such things are even available. So that's pretty spicy. So imagine the situation where you're relying on ward saves, like a fire slate or something, and this stuff just like levels your plan because you
Yeah.
didn't know about it. So that's one
Yeah.
example.
And like that Nurgle list that's running around right now, the Neff
Hmm.
is just like the biggest counter to it.
Oh
Like,
yeah.
cool. You had that? No word saved for you. Oh, here comes in a bunch of high rend attacks and some mortal wounds off the Black Knights, right? So like
It's
it's kind of scary, and
mhm.
it's going to be interesting to see who like builds into it, who doesn't, you know who actually finds the time for it, or like who's going to fall back on the magic strength of the GHP right now.
That's exactly it. Like, do you want to get lost in these new woods, or do you want to find something you think will work and stick to your tactics and stick to your guns?
Hmm.
And I think that definitely is maybe something going to come up in our list discussions in terms of tournament prep. Well, let me give you one more of these, just because if people haven't read these books, I want our leaders or listenership to know the scary stuff that's out there. So, Manfred von Carson, what do you think he's got, Matt? Have you heard about this one?
Oh, I've heard tell, but not the specifics because honestly, I learned by just walking in and getting my ass kicked.
That's true. It's like you need to have your hand savaged by like the saw trap, and then you know it's there. I
Mhm. I
I
need the dog to bite me to know to fear the dog.
I'm not so dissimilar in my learning style with AOS, but yeah, I mean this one's fun. So Manfred von Karstein, 10 Graveguard, two sets of three fell bats. So far so good, right? Sounds
Yep.
like a regiment. Maybe slight points discount. Ward save of 6+. But here's where it gets crazy, in terms of abilities. For one, you add +1 to the attack characteristic of weapons used by units in this regiment now to yourself in the same turn. Then of itself you say, but why would that matter? And here comes the crazy bit,
Oh,
which is just going to ruin someone's day. Oh, Cover of Night. At the start of your hero phase, you can pick one unit in this regiment renowned as more than 3 from them units, remove them, reset them up more than 6 inches from any enemy units. And then they can't move in the following movement phase, but they can still charge. And a 6-inch charge is pretty easy with a reroll. And if you're giving a bunch of Grave Guard with great weapons, +1 attack from doing that, and just YOLOing them into stuff, people are not screening for 6 if they
yeah.
don't know.
Yeah, and Graveguard are a unit that it just doesn't, you don't mind losing because you bring it back. They're best used in bigger blocks, right? You're already going to put
Yeah,
the points into it. You'll, it's not like you're going to expect them to survive after that.
exactly. Heck, even if it's not some kamikaze charge from them, Manfred's fighting, 6-inch Fellbats can sneak onto stuff or block you or steal an objective. I mean, there are a
Yeah.
lot of things in here to be aware of, and we're not to go through all of them because obviously that's not the intent of the episode. But this is the wild world we live in, and there's another one coming out like soon.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love the model that's coming out for it. It
Oh,
single handedly,
The Crone Hag
yeah.
lady. Yeah.
Ravens fan, Maryland, Maryland. Can't help it. So I see the crow lady and I go, come to me, crow lady, come here. The
Yeah. Well,
rules for it seem to be disappointing, to be 100% honest, though.
oh, from those previews where she's like
Mhm.
playing with a cauldron of blood and she's like emptying it for different like prophecies and powers and things like
Yeah,
that.
so you have this unit that's much faster than a cauldron of blood that
Hmm.
needs to be wholly within 6 of that cauldron of blood in order to give mostly offensive buff for a unit, right? To send it in to get hit. Now, like, I understand the idea of what they're trying to do, but you have a faster unit. Let me double check. I think it moves 12, but I want
She
to
has
make
wings. She
100%
got to
sure.
move like well,
Well,
unless those are purely decorative.
yeah, she's got fly 14 inches. So you have this fast moving 14-inch move unit. Very easy to kill on a 5 and up save. Um, that doesn't, well, I guess it's got a 4 and up. So it's around the same
Hmm.
as a wind spirit of the wind, from Lumineth, really.
Hmm.
Um, but you have to tie it down next to a a slow moving other model in order to get it the most out of your points that you're spending on it.
Hmm.
And I think it's 170 points, and it just doesn't it seems very limiting. Another one of those, like, there are a couple of these in these releases where it's like, well, I could see how that would be great for one turn or maybe 2 turns, or do I have to get a couple of these cauldrons of blood and move it up and have that bounce between them? well, I mean, nobody's going to survive that once they get punched in the face, right?
Yeah,
That's not
yeah,
a viable
that's
tactic.
it feels like a gimmicky army, but we could be totally wrong. There might be some build in there which is awesome, and those
Oh,
powers really do it. But it does seem like if you want to have your like Temple of Doom style, like horror specs, entrails sifting, blood magic, crone
hmm
lady, and that be like a theme, that's
yeah,
cool. You do it and you make it work for you, and you kind of live the story. But it might not be like the most efficient way to get to that win. But then again, like for one, could be wrong. For two, very thematic. And for three, I think the Chrono Lady kind of looks like Sia, the artist, with the way they painted her up with like the part and everything. So I want to see it work.
I wish I got pop references. Um, I think she just looks badass.
Both
That's what
things.
I'm going to say.
Both things, man.
Um, I do like one of the things that these armies of renowns and regiments of renowns have been doing, which is finding reasons to use units in a very distinct play style without forcing points decreases to the point where a unit is like, oh, that's an auto take.
It's
Because
true.
it's either an overswing or it's an underswing, right? And if it's an underswing with a very distinct play style that, you know, one or two people can get in and play well and really just shock you with, then that's amazing. Um, so I can definitely see that somebody will pick that up and do something good with it. Whereas on
Yeah.
the other hand, if I just bring my Legion of Blood out under, Neff Neff, then there's I'm gonna ruin some days, right? So like
Hmm.
it's interesting the swing and power on a bunch of them, and then just the gotcha moments that I think are probably going to inadvertently happen for somebody who's not like able to go into each tournament having read every single book, being able to keep up with every single thing, having all the time in the world to do that.
Only you and
Uh,
I could do that, Matt. And so we're distracted by this work every day.
I know, right? We should just give up and free range Warhammer it, right?
Exactly. So tell my wife I'm going to become a specialist. It's so
Yeah,
fun.
that's right.
um, well, let's dive into this. So obviously, this is the backdrop, and the undeniably fun wouldn't change it, but still chaotic
Mhm.
approach going to tournament where like things are a little bit less predictable than before. I mean, you certainly got like the usual suspects lurking around, looking at you, Seraphon, looking at you, Corn, and all that. But I mean, also this wildness. So who knows what you're going to see?
Mhm.
So let's do it. So let's talk about what we're going to bring and what our mentality is, Matt, in trying to combat all this and maybe do okay at a few of that, or at least better than not good.
Middling. We want to hit mid at the very least, right? Let's hit mid.
Middling to respectable. Anything better than that would be nice, but we can't expect it.
That's
So
right.
you want to go first in this, or should I?
Why don't you take it? Why don't you take it?
Sure, sure. So this weekend I have an RTT at a local game shop, a new local game shop called the 12 and Goblin, which is in Belmont. So if you guys are in the
Love that
area, check
name.
it out. Oh yeah. Guy who owns it seems really cool. I haven't had a chance to really interact with him much yet, but I've only heard good things. So a lot of heart in this place. Seems like it's off to a great start. So anyone in the Massachusetts area, definitely go check it out. We'll post a link to its address or whatever in the show notes just to make sure you guys can find it if you happen to be perusing in after a travel day in. But suffice to say, 20-person RTT. As of right now, there are 19 or 20 of 20 tickets sold. So it's not going to be a small one. And
Mhm.
there's some names in there, buddies of mine who are in, Wicked Dicey and other things like that who know their way around a dice cube or maybe how to push something across the board, in terms of Warhammer models. So it's not going to be gee, I picked up my first Stormcast army. Here's some guys I painted. Is this good? It's going to be people with cool ideas and plans and like, real great games all around. So this is definitely going to be
Plans.
yeah. So this is exactly the kind of environment where there's going to be a high level of play and like anything can happen, but it's going to be a ton of fun. So I am, just to preface it, super psyched. But
Nice.
I just hadn't been sure exactly what to bring, especially in this environment. And I'm gonna do Slaves to Darkness this year, I think, at least for a while, maybe for the whole of it. Gotta keep
Hmm.
going with the fun stuff. And I think I've sort of settled on what I'm calling the boring list because it's so Legion symmetrical that it just is it's I don't know, it's very exciting to me to not have that many obvious targets and to just have like a plan. And
I I love symmetrical lists. When I build, I try to make two armies in one, two smaller armies, right?
yeah,
That's kind of just that's my jam. Instead of one giant Death Star, you can just say, "Oh, you killed that one? Well, here's the other one that was right
it,
next to it. Now it's in your face."
exactly. And I'm gonna read down this list, and here you go, all listeners. It's a little obnoxious. It's fine. I'll give away all my secrets, but because this will be released after the tournament, if we hang out at the tournament, you will not hear this until it is far too late. Uh, or it might not matter if you destroy me on the field of battle. Doesn't matter. The point is, there's a lot of fun thematicism behind this one, I think.
Yeah,
So
lay it on me,
let's.
lay it on me.
All right. So of course, Slaves of Darkness, as I want to do right now.
Hmm.
And we're doing Kabbalists, as I want to do. And I gotta say, the reason for doing Kabbalists, it's at least partly driven by the fact that I have all of these really awesome Chaos Lord or Exalted Hero models. Like some of them are like old Hammer minis, like the Snake guy, or
Hmm.
like the crab claw kind of like spider guy, looks like a hermit crab.
Hmm.
Or it's even Harry the Hammer, like I have on a Lord base. Some good spicy old Hammer stuff. I just want to see on the table. And I
Yeah.
don't know what the future holds, but right now is absolutely the best time for these guys because they can become wizards and Kabbalists and thus have a purpose by
Yep.
doing something interesting. So that's the premise of the list, just so you guys know. And this is what has drawn me to it like a moth to a flame. Possibly to my army's destruction if this idea is not so good, but I got to try it out fully at least once. So without further ado, without further word vomit, here we go. So kicking it off, heroes. Bellicor, because
Hmm.
he's helpful and he's fun and he helps you differentiate in points. Uh, then the rest of the heroes. Three Chaos Lords.
Excessive.
All, yep, almost all identical. All three are Nurgle.
Okay.
All three have Endless Blizzard. And one of them has the artifact which shuts off wound models of one like with one or two wounds for a contested objective with 6 inches of
Oh, that's
it.
good. That's always a
Yeah,
good one.
real helpful. So you might say, well, these guys are Chaos Lords. Who are they commanding? Who are they hanging out with? Well, each of them has a companion unit of 10 Chaos Warriors, also marked Nurgle, one of
20
which will have the
wounds.
eroding icon banner. Yeah. All of
Cool.
which are the retinues for their companion Chaos Lords. And if you guys don't know, it's a ward save, 3 up, pass off if you want to snipe out my Chaos Lord. So there we are. These guys, of course, are the objective sitters. They're anvils. They're all fatty Nurgle anvils stuff.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the beginning of the list. There's also the general, ironically, the exalted hero of chaos, who's undecided and undivided, hiding back in the corner with his dreams of apotheosis with both the spell for that, as well as the general kit to survive a few things with the sword board and master of magic. Of course, the grand strategy is spellcasting savant, so he either wants to survive or turn himself into a demon prince. So the original model can't be killed. I auto get the grand strat, and I have a throwaway demon prince. That's
Ooh,
that's
fancy.
his yeah, that's his magic. Then we get on to sort of the fun spice, the remaining bits of the list. There's not much more to it, but there are 2 units, 3 Ogroid Theridons.
Ah, see, now you're speaking my language.
Yep. Each of them mark corn. I'm going to be fair about this. Only one of them gets a banded musician. The other one's just a Thoricon and 2 guys because they don't have a second set of banded musician painted up. But you know what? That doesn't matter. They're not
Hmm.
there to like be a giant super hammer. They're there to hang back and be the counterpunch behind either of the Chaos Warrior units if they get bogged down and they need something to hit hard. Because they have the
Hmm.
great axes and can do that with a mark of corn. Now comes the final spice, and really where we get to that perfect symmetry. The final units in the list are 2 units of 11 Blessed Barb Archers, which I
Mhm.
might combine into one if I feel like it, and Geminids of Ulgish as an endless spell.
I do like Geminids. It's kind of weird that we don't really see it that much anymore. I feel like we're in
It's
such damage heavy and like auto pass, and then there was the null myriad and stuff like that.
yeah,
Or
yeah. I mean,
Seraphon.
they're expensive,
Um,
right? And there are alternative choices that could get the Scything Blade and more direct damage or whatever, but
mhm.
they're good. I mean, the reason I
Yeah.
think I'm going to include them in this list is, I have this block of these 2 blocks of list barbs be back there peppering and giving me like all phase kind of control over stuff. Or I can combine with one big one so I can all out attack with one big one. And either way, the Geminids let me shut off an all out defense against shooting, and
Yep.
something which is critical, which can make a lot of difference in wounds, to say nothing of stuff like redeploys against counter charges from somewhat slower corn, Therodons or whatever.
Hmm.
So there's reasons for it, but I mean, I don't know if it was obvious so far, Matt, for the way I described it, but the whole theme of this list is letting these cool Chaos Lords shine. So it's ghosted on all the primaries with really hard to shift targets. Any single one of them can blizzard you. You almost
Yep.
can never remove the Blizzard Wizard before he gets a chance to blizzard you. So there's always a risk because of all the bodyguards and the Nurgle and all that.
Hmm.
I can still have them command themselves to poop out mortal wounds with the Chaos Aura from Nurgle. And if something's dangerous enough, I jump in and counterpunch, with the Ogre Therodons, and they're there in the backfield to just do exactly that, of whichever of the 3 units need it, because I have 2 units that cover the whole field. And then if that's not enough, I can screw with you with the archers, who are also in that backfield, hopefully not getting sniped by deep strikers or long range shooting, but able to do the stuff,
Yeah.
while hopefully reliably securing the grand strat. And this list, I think, it's feels like a legion. I think you can secure, via battle tactics, on the missions that were selected for this one, because they're not the deployment zones that require Furies to always be able to get intimidate the invaders. So
Hmm.
I think it's got a chance, and it just feels so satisfying to play this.
Oh, and I like the simplicity of it, right? Like I think more and more as I've been building lists, it's I have the attention span of like I don't know, like a rabbit or something. I don't know, some small animal with very little attention span. Um, so
Fair
like
enough. Fair
the
enough.
more choices, and I think this just goes for anything, right? The more choices you make in a game, or the more choices you have to make in a game, whether that's down to list building, battle tactic choices, etc., like the more opportunities are presented for failures, right?
So true.
And so, like the stability of using a list where you know all of the models by heart, you know their capabilities, you know their weaknesses, and you have like a kind of a fun theme around it too, right? That just kind of speaks to like even like you'll know where you're at in the game at all points just because you know your units, you know their capabilities, right? So I really like that in a list. I like that about that list, and I also kind of like that you're taking advantage of the Chaos Lords by keeping them in those blocks, right? So that means you can potentially have 2 rounds of combat where 3 units are fighting, right, for just one block. And you can chain that down if you really need to. Like if somebody
Hmm.
doesn't fully commit, you can just be like, cool, I'm just going to throw a Chaos Lord in. Whoops, here comes some Chaos Warriors. They're now fighting. And like you can do chip damage off of it. And especially if you're like hit on all fronts, that's, there's a, let's say each one of those gets charged. There's a good chance that 2 of them are going to be fighting with 2 units in one go.
Exactly, exactly. And it's an annoying wall of meat. I mean,
Hmm.
they can do that, but they have to consider, well, I have a Bellicor in there, so you can go anywhere. And if they really have some linchpin piece and the key turn they need it to work to not have me just outscore them on primaries for too many turns because they're just sitting there,
Hmm.
guess who's getting Bellacord? If they come on in and they're trying to play the guessing game of where can I blizzard them, the answer is anywhere they hit me because I have three chaos stores all with that spell. I
Yeah.
mean, they're not all gonna cast it, but they're it's there as a kind of omnipresent threat. And I'm just enjoying like the possibilities that creates. Like no one likes running into 10 chaos warriors.
Yeah.
You can outnumber them, you can still grab the objective, you fight well. There's certainly situations that's not enough, but they're gonna sit there and they're gonna grind you, and there's other stuff in the list.
Hmm. And the best part is too, you have the speed from, Bellicor and the other two archers if you need to on a six objective mission to grab what you need, right?
Hmm.
You've got all the tools you kind of need to hit every objective if you need, or focus in on one. Like I'd hate to have all of that condensed onto like towers, right?
Yeah,
That would be
yeah, yeah.
horrifying to have to deal with all three of those blobs just like right.
Here we
um
go. Come get it. Yeah, exactly.
yeah. And then you've got your hypothetical ability for Mystic Shield on one, all out defense on the other. Like, yeah, it sounds really solid, really fun. I like it.
Thanks. Thanks. Yeah. And there is like, if there's one critical objective or one thing that has to be held, well, I can put the warriors with the eroding icon on that one, and I can
Mm-hmm.
Mystic Shield them if I need to. And of course, that Chaos Lord will be the one who is identical, but for the fact that your models won't steal it. You can
Yeah.
kill as many of them as you want. As long as you're sitting there, you're nothing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's another good, like, that's a good way of actually using that artifact. I always try either movement heavy armies or ones where I'm barely going to edge in on the objective, to be honest. Like my goal will have to be kill something off the objective rather than annihilate it or
Hmm.
nullify the ability entirely. So like that's actually like a really good use. I can never get it to work because I'm always like, no, 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 that must die. That must die.
We'll see how it goes. I'll admit I was going back and forth, Matt, between this and the variant where like I dropped, one of the Bliss Barb units and had like an Infernal and Raptors in there to be like fuck with the magic, which was also
Hmm.
fun. And like
Yeah.
some Furies, but I don't know. I kind of want to see this one in play, either with the split or combined, the Bliss Barbs. This could have a lot of fun.
Yeah. And I like the split, to be 100% honest, because like anything that shoots at them, they're gonna die. If they get stuck in combat, they're gonna die. The bliss barbs die.
Oh yeah.
And like at one point, right? Like, is it worth throwing all of that into one pot where like things like you know Beltanos running and charging into them, somehow surviving all of that, and then wiping a full unit in one go, which he can very well do,
Oh yeah.
right? Or a Durthu or something like that. Um, you know, the that all I'm all about the redundancy in lists. My vote is split them.
I'm leaning that way. It'll be a game time decision, but there's some truth there. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I guess if you had them all combined, you could do one stand and shoot, or you can do one all out attack, and it kind of creates some efficiencies. But you're right, or one, automatic passive morale. It is
Yeah,
kind of a juicy target. It actually puts so many points in that one unit. There's finally something for people to focus on in this list, which you don't really
mm-hmm.
want. And
Yeah,
then it's, they're bliss barbs, right? So if someone could piss out like D3 mortal wounds plus whatever, I actually have to spend resources, not have them all run away.
yeah, yeah. Whereas, like, I think with once somebody gets into the what is it, 21 models in there, and they've survived, you know, a charge uh, into them, there's usually a good chance that they're just going to die off
Oh yeah.
anyways. So
Field
it's
field day, exactly. But like
yeah.
11 can be unobtrusive. They can be like 14 inches behind the front lines, and then just
Hmm.
be like, "Oh, you're here. I'm gonna help make sure that anvil gets ground down, or whatever
Yeah.
space the anvil gets ground down."
And they're just as a unit quicker to get around the board, right? Because smaller footprint means you can squeeze through things
Yeah,
and get everybody there. It's just, to me, I like splitting them, but I can definitely see the argument for the opposite.
Well,
Yeah.
think about it, but the perfect symmetry. It feels like a legion when it's like this nice these companion pieces. So well, I might do
Mhm.
that. I think it's a pretty unorthodox army, but anyway, that might be the fun, spicy choice for this weekend. So anyway, that's me, and we'll see how it works out. We'll come back to it. Anyone
Mhm.
from our listenership or soon to be listenership or me at the tournament, thanks guys for the great game in advance. We'll have a fun one no matter what happens, but I'm looking forward to this one. Matt, tell me about your list and tell me about your tournament. What are you doing?
So this weekend is Sparkle Party in Seattle. We have it's essentially the largest non, Games Workshop sponsored tournament in the area for the year at the moment. And we get a lot of heavy hitters. I know we have a lot of like some of the best Pacific Northwest players, some of the best players in, I guess, worlds even, right, are going to be showing up
Nice,
from
nice.
the area. And so it's always, you're like, I'm never really looking at the list. When they reveal the list, I'm looking at the players like, oh God, who signed up? Yeah,
I
so
get that. I get that. You know someone's gonna bring the tough thing and you just can't do nothing about it.
yeah, and it's never really the armies. It's the players playing them, which is great because that's a great place to be in. Because really, like we were talking about in that last episode with LVO, it seems like the game has gotten to a point where almost any army can be played, as long as it's being played well and take it for the bacon. Um, but we are running into a, a bunch of pretty scary armies.
hmm
Strangely enough, I think it's four of Fire Slayers
You,
armies.
you were saying that are they doing the like 15 Grimwrath Berserkers thing, or is it more like
No, it's
traditional?
all over the place. Completely different lists for each one of them. I think there's a Vorstarg. There's a bunch of different sub allegiances. So I'm really interested to see how that plays out. I want to see some of these armies place higher because I've got a huge Fire Slayers army that I keep on bouncing in and going, ugh, and then putting them back on the shelf. So I'm always happy to learn. I think that'll be the best experience. But I'm waffling on my
Okay.
list here. You were going to say something?
I was saying, hands down, Fire Slayers are the best army in the game if you only have three colors of paint you can buy.
Yes.
Orange,
And
skin, and steel.
yeah. And if you like diapers, right?
Yeah. Like if you had aspirations to be one of those like adult diaper babies, but like an
hmm
angry one, Fire
hmm
Slayers.
There is something that, some ambitious modeler out there, or sculptor needs to do, which is to get little, what do you call them? The suckers.
Oh, pacifiers?
Yeah. Somebody should get pacifiers model pacifiers for every one of their fire slayers.
That'd be cute. I like
That'd be
that.
adorable.
They're
Um,
fun. They're fun though. They have a cool theme. I just wish they just like expanded model range.
I actually really enjoy the simplicity of Fire Slayers. And I know we're going on a tangent here, but I really enjoy the
Mhm.
simplicity of Fire Slayers. I still think they're a really strong army. They just suffer from the fact that they were one of the earlier books, and they didn't get the mid edition rend updates that everybody else kind of got, right? There are two armies that really suffer from not having the rend added to their weapons. One is Stormcast, the other is Fire Slayers.
That's
Um,
true.
and so like once they fix that, it'll that army I think will be really good. Give them all base Ren 1 and you're good to go. Uh,
I think you're probably right about that, but you really went a different direction than I was going to. I thought you were going to say malnutrition and tailoring.
yep. Malnutrition and tailoring would be good for them. They'd lose, they'd gain and lose.
Joking
um,
aside, they are quite cool. I'm curious to see how the four players are bringing them in your tournament too.
Yeah, we'll have to talk about it. There's a bunch of interesting lists there. We've got three new Flesh Eater Courts armies showing up. So I'm a little bit scared about that. I got a game in with CJ Van Ness, who's local
Hmm.
here, good friend of mine, and also a patron.
Oh yeah,
Um, and
a valued patron. I know you
yes,
are.
yeah, yeah, you do. And I didn't even get to see recursion because I was like, I don't even know how this army works. Haven't had a chance to read the book. Got
Now
completely wiped.
let's talk about
So
this for a second, Matt, because I know that we have eventual things to get to, but also this is always strikes late. So we'll have a little bit of license with both the length of the episode and our discussion.
yes.
So new fact, what did he bring?
Oh,
We don't got to hear
oh,
it.
oh, oh. Well, dang, I have to pull it up. So uh let me pull that up. And actually, we have a couple of different styles of lists there too, which is interesting. Let me get
Oh, on the fact stuff that the folks are bringing.
mm-hmm.
I
Yeah,
believe
so
it.
let me pull them up here because the new BCP is kind of weird. So here's what he's got. He's got Hollowmorn as his sub faction. Grand strategy is defend the throne, which I don't even know what that is, to be honest. I'm going to spend all my
Oh, that
time
you
on
gotta just not let
Mohapedia,
them blow up the throne or have anyone near it at the end.
which is a weird one.
Yeah.
Although, the amount of models he can put on the board, it totally does not dissuade me from thinking he can do it.
Yep,
Um,
yep.
so he's got an Arch Regent with Hoarfrost,
Oh yeah, that makes sense.
Gore Worden, who is the general, with Feverish Scholar is his command trait, and Merciless Blizzard.
Hmm.
Ghoul King on Terrorgeist with Gruesome Bite for the mount trait and
Hmm.
Deranged Transformation for the spell. He's got Infernal Courtier and then a Vargulf Courtier with
Nice.
Charnel Vestments for the artifact and Charnel
Oh yeah.
Conviction for the prayer.
That one's key because it turns him into a priest, but it's kind of more flexible than the other priests. And the Eternal Conviction is the 5-up ward save one, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Um, Either way, all of those are now actually really good instead of being so-so in combat. So I learned that
So
the
true.
rough way using my Beast of Chaos. He's got a 320 point unit of Crypt Ghouls, which I'm going to guess is the doubled,
Yeah,
hopefully,
that's a double
or tripled.
reinforce. So that's a 40. That's a 40 there.
Yeah.
And listeners, if I might remind you, if I seem to have a bit of knowledge about the army, it's because that's my little side project right now. So I'm a bit of a feck boy myself right now.
I feel like everybody is at heart except me. They're the one death army that for some reason has just not intrigued me. Um, and that may be because I'm actually looking at Bretonians for Old World.
Totally fair. Totally
Just want to
fair.
go for the OGs.
Hmm.
3 units of Morbeg Knights, 150 points, I think, is the just three of them,
Yeah,
right?
that's
Yep.
just three. So he's like an MSU more big knights thing. Jump
Hmm.
in, be annoying, do mortal wounds, die, come back. Okay.
Yep. And then a unit of crypt flares. And yeah, that's it. Like, I know it doesn't feel like much, but man, they're an interesting army because I know pretty much all of this is coming back unless I kill everything.
Yeah. Well, if
Kill
they
all
have
the
enough
heroes,
points.
right? But man,
Yeah.
150 points for the Morbeg Knights is still uh, eye-wateringly scary for
They
what
did
they
do
can do.
surprising work. I have six of them myself, and they're like really fun. Really
Yeah,
fun.
yeah. So I'm kind of excited to see how those go. And I won't lie, I built my list based on kind of an idea that I've been trying to follow for a
Hmm.
long time. And, I don't like to bring armies to a tournament unless they're at like a painting standard that I'm proud of. And so it's a long
Okay.
process for me.
So it's
Um,
the painted GT, like, damn it, man. We may die, but we'll die in style approach.
Yep, yep.
Okay.
And so I wanted to set the beast aside for a little while, because when it comes down to it, dragon ogres are fun, but there's a certain difference between the new Beast of Chaos book and the OG second edition Beast of Chaos book that just it's missing that zhuzh, if you will.
Hmm.
Um, and so move back over to my original army, Stormcast Eternals. Um,
Nice.
so I'm playing the Astral Templars in this, which is essentially the faction where you just don't get monstrous rampages on you. You're not affected by it. They can't do it at
Oh,
you, so you can't get stomped by Durthu. You
can't get
can't get
roared. Yeah, okay. Yeah.
roared, can't get a 5 mortal wound bite or whatever it is from a turtle, right?
That's kind
So,
of fun. That throws off some people's mental math because they don't run into that, I guess.
yeah,
Yep.
and I'm playing almost exclusively Vanguard Hunters and Paladors. Now, before I go into the units, the I probably should describe why I'm doing this.
Yes.
So the idea of building this list is to not have interactions with my opponent.
So you're blood
Um,
bowling it. You're blood bowling it right now.
I'm completely blood bowling it, even though I've never played Blood Bowl. I played the video
It's
game once and it got really confused and just kind of
it's
set it
it's
down and
it's
walked
more of
away.
a philosophy. It's that the dice are there to betray you and ruled by an evil god. May
Yes,
not be named
yes.
novel.
So this battle tactic has pretty much a guaranteed 4 turn scoring. Um, and that's using any of the movement and placement battle tactics. And then I pulled in something to get additional battle tactics that are Stormcast Eternals specific as well.
Hmm.
And all of that's based on teleporting. So the entire list stands for 2 models, can jump up off the board and jump down anywhere I need them. So if I need more from the starting army, or if I need more on the outside of my deployment zone, easy enough to do. If I need, one in each table line, or table side, table edge, easy enough to do.
Wait a second,
Uh,
Matt. Wait a second. I mean, I know you're telling your list, but just because you've talked about the dice and avoiding them in a Blood Bowl-esque way, just the initial
mhm.
deploys are guaranteed, but your redeploys, aren't they based upon re-rolling a prayer if it fails and a 2-up?
No,
I thought it was that the mirror thing where you just move 'em around. Was it something else you do?
no. So Vanguard hunters have an astral compass. As long as you're not in combat with Vanguard hunters, you can pick them up and essentially do a beastman ambush anywhere on the table,
Oh, that's cool. That's cool. Okay.
but 6 inches from the board edge, 9 inches away from somebody else. Paladors, on the
Nice.
other hand, have probably one of the coolest rule sets that everybody sleeps on. And I was really upset when I first saw the changes to the rules for both of these armies, because they lost a lot of their movement shenanigans that they used to have and replaced it
Hmm.
with a reposition, essentially a teleport. Um, Paladors, in lieu of a move or a retreat, can be removed from the board and placed back anywhere on the board 9 inches away from somebody.
Oh,
So
nice.
you can then shoot and charge after you've done that, right?
Hmm.
So there's a lot of fun stuff that you can do there. Um, it is something that I'll have to be aware about if I'm going for, 2 charge, 2 retreat. But that's kind of one of the tangential ones, right? For me,
Hmm.
charge in with the hero, charge in with another unit. Don't kill the unit like I did last night in my practice game against a stupid chariot that only had a 5 and up save when I thought it was a 4 and up save. Eh. Um, do that. Um, so the entire point of the army is non-interactiveness, right? You've come here and you showed up with your giant death ball of an army to strike fear in the hearts of all your opponents and table them. Cool, great job. I'm just going to go in these corners. I'm not even going to interact with you. half of the army is going to, be off table, and I'll be putting them in piecemeal as I need them up to turn 3, where everything else will have to come down, and then I can get the ancillary scores,
I
right?
like it.
The great thing about all of it too is, with the boards, with most of the maps having, the 11-inch deployment, that means that, or sorry, the 11-inch into the objectives, that means my 6-inch drop, I can normally grab an objective,
Hmm.
easy peasy. So it's very easy, unless you're playing another high teleport army or a big blob army, to just go and get hold one, hold two, hold more, hold one, hold two, hold more, hold one, hold two, hold more. Oh, you took that one from me? Cool. I'm going to go to the other side that you had to leave, right? So, very much a you do you, boo. I'm just going to do my own thing on this table while you're here. So,
Nice. I dig that.
and that being said, the entire army shoots. The entire army is okay in combat. The entire army, has a decent move or the capability to get to a decent move. So everything has pretty much an even capability of scoring objectives. And then there's one or two things in here to kind of spice it up. So without further ado, uh, 6 Vanguard Hunters, six
Yep.
units of 5 Vanguard Hunters. 3 of those are in a Redemption Brotherhood, with another 3 Vanguard Paladors.
Hmm.
Um, and then a 4th Vanguard Palador to go into my Warlord Battalion. All the Vanguard Paladors have shock hand axes because the throwing spear at -1 rend only makes it just kind of worthless for one shot.
Hmm.
So that last Vanguard Paladors, the one of the 4 that are in there are in a Warlord Battalion with a Knight Incantor, because in this edition, being able to shut down magical dominance is needed every time, right?
Oh yeah.
So if I have the ability to do so, I got to take it. I have Ionis Cryptborn in here as well.
And that's a
Um,
spicy choice, right? So far it's been like, okay, see, a
mhm,
little MSU everywhere, but here's a guy
yeah,
who is a
and
big, scary new hero model with some abilities.
and I've given him blessed weapons,
Hmm.
so that I can make the most of any unit that has to actually charge in with him when he comes down. Um, oh, and for the Knight Incantor, their spell is Lightning Blast, which is essentially just throws mortal wounds on the closest unit anywhere on the board, which is a fun thing that I don't really see, because it's only D3 wounds, but anywhere on the board, closest model, cool, great. Let's just put a little bit of random fear, or let somebody forget that it's on there and catch somebody in the right spot, right?
Absolutely.
And then my general is a Knight Zephyros with an Arcade Tome and Master of Magic. Um, so that leads right into what my grand strat will be, which is Spellcasting Savant. And then my Holy Command enhancement is Steadfast March. Steadfast March is there for a very big reason. For those who don't know, the Steadfast March allows me to make a unit run and charge. Shoot or charge, I believe.
Hmm.
But for me, it's going to be a run and charge. So as you can see there, I kind of have all the movement. Oh, and I do have one more thing. I have a Deus Arcanum so that I can make sure that that 9 Incantor, if they really want to, um, can move 12 inches. Or I can
Hmm.
hand it to the Knight Zephyros, give them a 12-inch move along, and -1 to hit, right? That's the great thing about the Deus Arcanum. With a -1 to hit on the Knight Zephyros, that's going to be even harder to take that thing off the board. So, all of that being said, the army will function around very specific strategies, which is for the first 3 turns, if I'm not up against Khorne or Seraphon, magical dominance goes on the board right away, right?
Hmm.
Just go ahead, get get that spell out that I need for the Knight Incantor, done and done. If I'm not able to get magical dominance, then I can move on to whatever the most advantageous movement-based battle tactic is, which is either the Stormcast specific one, have one in each quarter of the board outside of 6 of enemy units. Um, put one on each edge of the board, right? Two
Hmm.
outside of your deployment zone. Have more outside than in, which is very easy with the teleporting army. And there's one more that I'm forgetting off the top of my head. Beep, 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 do, 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 do. Either way, those are three, potentially four right away.
Hmm.
And then that's before hitting into anything where I have to commit to the enemy, right? So all of those so far are things where I can just bounce around the board, get battle tactics, stay away from people. Now, the way that I've been deploying is a full half and half.
Hmm.
I believe it's four, it's either three or four of the hunters come down, depending on what I need. Generally, two or one unit of Paladors, the Knight Incantor, and depending on what the opponent's army is, the Knight Zephyros for Master of Magic, so I can get magical domination, right?
Makes sense so far. Yeah, yeah.
Yep. And Ionis stays up in the clouds. For the most part, I'm probably going to leave. It's going to be army dependent, mission dependent, but most part, Zephyros is probably going to stay off the board as much as possible, leave them all the way to turn 3 and drop them down so I can keep spellcasting Savant alive as much as possible, right?
Hmm.
But Ionis waits until the third turn, comes down way off outside of anybody's area. Now I've introduced two more battle tactics using a dragon because that's two Stormcast battle tactics that I can now use depending on the situation.
I see what you're saying. So you're playing the let me get all the chicken dance points. Let's make sure I get
Mm-hmm.
my five, get my three, because you have like a pretty like, hard to find and track down by Zephyros. And then the
Mm-hmm.
rest of it's like, this is so high movement and shenanigan, I can sneak out the primary. So you're gonna edge people out every game. They're not gonna realize that you're doing it, even if they
Yep.
think they're controlling the board.
Well, and then the best part is if there is one very scary thing that's in my way, I now have Ionis on the table, turn 3, right? Because I'm holding him down until my turn, whether
Yep.
I have to put him down on first or second. Um, and preferably, I think on the turn that he comes down, I want to go second, right? Because there's a
Hmm.
potential for him to double and turn into a prayer. But Ionis comes down, uses the Holy Command to then be able to auto run 6 on top of his 14-inch move and then charge. So I can get him across the board, slingshot him into something, and hopefully take something down to open up in an area with the Paladors.
Hmm.
So this one is entirely this is the game as I love to play it, to be 100% honest, which is find the one moment that I need to break your back as you've been kind of like trying to jump around and kill my units off. Let you think that as you're killing a unit here, you're killing a unit there, that you're winning, even though when you look down at your points, you go, wait a minute, he's keeping up with me here. And then your goal is to try and deny me from battle tactics that at that point, it's going to be the last two turns where you're going to have to stop me. And most armies generally want to have their game done by 3, right? Turn
Hmm.
3 is when they're like, okay. Turn 3 is when the majority of the army, well, the rest of the army generally shows up to get the rest of the work done.
Well, yeah,
So,
and that's also when they would have liked to have hopefully conveniently cleared up a good chunk of your points and some significant combat engagement with their best threat pieces.
mhm. But by that point, once you've gotten to turn 3, unless you're playing a moving castle army like the lizard wizards, like a
Hmm.
toad blob, right? or as we love to call them, beans of fire slayers.
Hmm.
You're going to be spread out, which then means you're either going to, if you're aware of the capability of my army, you're going to be trying to outposition me to make sure that I can't get 9 inches to anywhere, which is going to put you in a bad position, right? Which means I can then take advantage of some of the other battle tactics that I didn't even get into, which would be, bait and trap, another easy one. I could go ahead and uh, do Let into the Maelstrom, another easy one for this army
Hmm.
specifically. Um, and then if they're all spread out, that means that I can then take advantage of the units that are already on the board, whatever survived, and continue to dismantle you slowly
Yeah.
but surely. If it's a recursion army, that's great. I can put everything down in, destroy a unit off the board, and have fun. If it's going to be something like that Feck army where you've got one big blob of 40, great, grand, own the table. Go ahead and kill my guys. The more you spread out, the easier it is to find a place where you've got 19 and a half inches open and I can drop in the Palladors in one little line and then they can charge you and get rid of that hero, right?
Hmm.
So it's more, those lists to me are more like I've got a plan and now I'm going to let you steer the course of the game on your own. I'm going to react to the decisions that you're making because my plan is already going. And I'm going to just fall underneath the tempo of the game and keep up. And then try and survive turns 4 and 5.
It's interesting because I think both of these lists, Matt, are not necessarily trying to anticipate every eddy and shift in this crazy new meta we have, or memorize
Mm-hmm.
every rule, or tech into every little thing, but they try to create a very solid plan to deal with the scenarios which are likely to come across the boards and to score points. I didn't really get into it, but mine also is a tactics path to probably have 6 to 7 pretty easily to make sure that it plays to the strengths of the army to even unlock some of the stuff which otherwise is difficult. I mean, I know we talked about bait and trap in some of the other episodes, and
Mm-hmm.
into the maelstrom is difficult to secure units, but when you have sticky bodyguard units, into the maelstrom's easy. When you
Yep.
have bait and trap off of like multiple anvil engagements, stepping back with two simultaneously engaged units of a pair of lord and warriors and charging somewhere else is easy. And so all of a sudden, two dicey ones become reliable, and there's stuff like that out there. So I think
Yeah.
I think maybe we're going the philosophy route of it's too crazy, but let's have a plan.
Yeah. Yeah. Is every plan will get punched in the face, but we know how our armies work,
Yeah, we
right?
might get beat up, but we'll look good doing it.
That's right. And that's one of the things that I'm going to have to be aware of. Every once in a while, it's generally my second game in any tournament. I will completely lose the plot of whatever's going on. Right. That's when the back hurts the most. I haven't taken the ibuprofen, yada yada yada. Right.
Oh, it's true.
And
It's true.
and having just an immediate plan for what I'm going to do and knowing intimately how the units work, right? And how I want them to work so that I have a plan to follow regardless of what hits the fan, whether it's shit or chocolate cake. Um, will make it just much easier to get through that. In
That's
addition to
true.
that, like one of the things that I think because I fall down on those second games, I generally don't check people's lists. I don't know what I'm walking into. I like to have people explain. I think that's part of uh, the experience of starting a conversation with somebody. When you get up to a table, is, hey, I've never seen that one. What does that do? Right.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
when it comes down to something like this, it's probably with all the regiments of renown, with all the armies of renown, with all the special rules, it's probably just going to be easier to read that stuff ahead of time, knowing who my pairing is or knowing who the potential pairing is, right? Um, I think that's probably going to be the best way to navigate that right away. Like, at the very least, I know we really should have a sponsorship from them by now. I'm just gonna say with all of their
I know you're gonna say.
money, you can always just make their list on AOS reminders and go through it and see what it does. Right?
Wait, what's the name of that site again?
AOS reminders
Is there
dot
a dot
com
com after that? Oh, look.
dot com.
I think this isn't so much like an affiliate agreement you've constructed as an affiliate throw at your feet, but yeah, it's a start.
It's it just lives in my head rent free. That's what it is I'm sponsoring them, damn it. um but no, I think that's going to be one of the ways that, like, walking into this tournament, it's not going to be an easy one, just because of the craziness, the calibers of players. We're at 50
Nice,
players on
very
this event.
nice.
And it's a full GT of like some of the better people in the area.
You're
um
gonna have such a blast, Matt. I mean, yeah,
yeah,
yours is a harder road to any kind of success. Mine's the bite-sized one. I mean, definitely tough crowd of good guys, but one day at least, 20
yeah.
people. We'll have a fun time, have a beer or two afterwards, and I can go do something relaxing on my Sunday. You're
Oh
in
man,
it. You're in it.
you know what? And Kimmy walked in and we were talking about it too. We get daylight savings time on Sunday, so it's going to be even more strange. I wonder how
Oh
many
yeah.
people are going to have to deal with, oh wait, my alarm went off early. um yeah, so there's a lot there, and again, making less decisions means less chances for failure, right? So
Yep.
um yeah, I'm looking forward to it. The I am I'm fairly certain we do at least have two regiment or armies of renown in there, one of them being the new flesh eater courts, and I think one of them is actually in the soul blight one. I
Oh,
just don't know
that's
which one
cool.
it is.
So wait,
So
it's the new. Someone's using the new regiment with a Shorin in it, and they're like a different faction. Do you mean?
yeah, I think it's Legion of Night. So I think so. Don't quote me on it. But I believe that's what it's going to be. And then we do have Belthanos. We have all of the fun
Hmm.
people coming in. So it'll be fun to talk about how everything goes with Sparkle Party. It'll be a blast. Matt Beasley and Ricky Fisher always put on an amazing tournament, and some of the best players and best people in the area. To be 100% honest, amazing
Oh yeah,
people.
both guys are great. Mhm.
Yeah. So I'm excited for it. It'll be a lot of fun. Yeah.
Well, I'm excited to hear about it, and hopefully we can come back in the next episode talking about how just two good old round great times, and we'll see what happens. But
Yeah.
there you have it. There you have it. People who see us over the weekends, we've talked it all out. You won't hear this episode before then. Looking
That's
forward to
right.
meeting you.
You'll hear it in retrospect and you'll be like, Matt, why didn't you follow your plan? And I'll be like, it's the second game. It's the second game. And that'll
Yeah,
that'll be what happens.
it's true. I mean, based on what we do, a lot of things could be said. It could be what diabolical genius is, or what a staggering inability to execute on a thought.
That's right.
Could be.
I'll always probably sit on the ladder, but it'll be fun.
We could, depending on what goes on, really ride that spectrum. But at the very least, a couple of things we said. One, we had a thought. Two, it'll be fun. Three,
Hmm.
and hopefully aspire to somewhere in the middle. So, guys, I think this is probably a pretty good place to wrap it up. I know we kept you to a good clip this evening, but a lot of fun topics. And as always, we're doing the thing we love to do here, talking about AOS, trying to find a path to some good times and great games, maybe some great victories, in the world of competitive Warhammer and this great AOS universe that they're constructing bit by bit.
Overwhelmingly sometimes.
Mhm.
Cool. Well, thanks y'all for listening. And if you're striking late, then
You
you
got to
struck
strike last.
last. Yeah, you struck last.
Did it. I know you're going to go for it.
Nah.